Just fucking do it. Subscribe now.
And based on, you've already had due diligence and you've knocked the price down from 13 million to 10 million. And so I'm selling the assets. Now the 2 or 3 things will come up in an asset sale. Who keeps the cash? And a legitimate 100% asset sale. All the things that are assets that on a balance sheet, like cash, accounts receivable, should go with the assets. But 9 times out of 10, the seller will want to keep the cash and keep the accounts receivable. You can always tell how good the accounts receivable are if they want to keep them. If they're shit, they won't keep them. They'll say, "I'll take the cash, you take the accounts receivable." Okay, so that's 100% of the time. But let's just say that in this particular case, that they're going to keep the cash and the accounts receivable. So, but now on seller finance, you're going to pay me $10 million. Okay, and I would probably add $1 million because it's 100% seller finance. And so the real, not trick, but the gimmick that you have to be very aware of is the time frame. How much time am I going to give you to pay me this money? Since it's arguably it's my own money because you're paying me out of my own money. Now there are billionaires that I know that 50 years ago didn't understand how anybody would do a seller finance, and I went to a funeral a few months ago. They still don't understand why anybody would allow you to buy them with their own money. But the fact is that they do. People are. So I would try to push it out as far as possible. Now, when it's 100% seller finance, it's arguably more difficult to get them to say, well, no payments for the first 2 years. Okay? Because now, in some cases, this will be their retirement. Okay? And one of the methods that the kids use, well, I mean, if you put the money in the bank, what do you get? 1%, 1.5%. Before you were getting 0.1%, but now you're getting, and this is a good time when you bring up interest. Well, I'm going to give you 5%. Okay, but they probably don't want to wait a year to get their first payment. So but again, if they don't bring up interest, you don't bring up interest. That's the first person that mentions that will, and you'll really be able to tell if they're going to use it for retirement, because normally this is the only asset they have that they're drawing any money on. They may have some apartment building or some little thing, but it will be still based on, do you pay them quarterly? Do you pay them monthly? I've got some of the kids, I don't recommend this, they pay every 2 weeks, twice a month on a seller's note. That can be problematic depending on cash flow, It really depends on how good a manager you are. Okay, and I'm assuming none of you are good managers, so quarterly would be nice.
Yearly best.
Well, yearly, but I mean, most people can't live a year without the cash flow.
So as the seller, I'll be the seller, I raise an invoice to you for my assets. You pay me over time though.
Correct.
So I raise an invoice for $1 million or 10 million.
Over 112 months or whatever.
Yeah, but I want to liquidate the company, don't I, to shut that down. So that how...
Well, no, you're not liquidating because somebody else has taken over the company.
There's
the assets of the company. Now, part of the negotiation will be, are you keeping it in the same place that he ran it for 30 years? Or are you moving it to someplace else? Are you moving it to Taiwan or Vietnam, depending on what kind of business it is? So he will turn the key on that business, but the assets from that business will be extracted and sold to you, or sold to me if you're the owner.
Yes. But surely, so he's that entity that he's owned for 20 years, I'll buy the assets and move them into the new company.
But you mean to be in the same building, but part of the assets may be the building.
Right. Say there's no property involved in this deal.
Oh, well, that's better.
Yeah. But then that company has to get shut down, doesn't it? Has to be liquidated. There's corporation tax that gets attracted to that 10 million or million at 20% in England.
You're talking about the capital gains tax on when he sells the business.
Well, no, corporation tax.
When he sells the assets, well then that's all the more reason why you will add on, you will lever up another million or million and a half over 10 or 15 years to make up for the taxes that he's got to pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But can he liquidate that company before the last payment, or does he have to keep the company
I don't
running?
know that. It depends where it is. It depends
In
where it is.
England.
Well, no, it depends what kind of company.
Right.
You know, 30, 40 years ago, there was a lot of companies that were started with special tax dispensation from the Chancellor of the Exchequer. It depends on how the company was started. If it's just a plain vanilla company that he started 20 years ago, then there will be a capital gains tax. There will be a capital gains tax, which you can not filter in, but you can leverage into the purchase price. Instead of 10 million, let's say the tax is going to be 2 million, you pay them 12 million. But there is a time value for money. Now, very seldom do they ever bring out with a discounted cash flow is worth more today than it is 20 years from now. Occasionally, you know, the guy's got a son or a grandson who's an accountant and say, hey, yo, grandpa, you ought to be getting more money. And those cases have to be handled, you know, one by one. But if they're sold on the taxes that will be due in tranches. It's not going to be done all at one time.
Yeah.
As you receive the money, you pay the taxes due. Not you signed a contract for 10 million, but you're getting $1 million now. You pay the taxes on the $1 million, and then the second million, and the third million, until. So you're really giving them a benefit of. You're not saving them any taxes, but you're saving them having to come up with the money all at once.
But that's really a psychological sale tactic to have them accept seller's finance. It's one of the arguments. You're getting your capital gains taxes deferred over time. There's no real advantage at the end of the day for the owner, right?
No, not dollars and pounds and cents.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but a lot of people now it's the lawyer in the group, and he said that when he used the not technique, but when I say you're now spreading the taxes over, and some of the sellers aren't going to understand some of that. And so the example I used to use, which is still good and people still use it, is house flipping. They've been house flipping for since World War II. No money down, house flip, and we're not flipping them, although we're exiting in 3, 5, 7 years, or as soon as humanly possible. And again, we let on our side of the equation, we let the market tell us when is the time to exit. And it may be, we've got guys exiting. Roberto exited in part of it in less than a year, then a big chunk of it in 2 years, and then another, as I recall, another big chunk of it in 3 years. And there are partial exits. I don't spend a lot of time on that, but in the current environment, with the interest rates what they are, I mean, partial exits are after you own the asset for a year or 2 or 3 to take money off the table. Now the kids look at it; they're de-risking because they're putting money in the pocket. Okay, I don't look at it that way. But if you've never had any significant amount of money, you can call it de-risking. But I mean, it's you have to have some fruits of your labor.
And the advantage is you want to get a blended rate over time, right?
Correct. That's okay. And so there's nothing that begets success more than cash in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you've realized something that it works. And the board, although they may not be with you forever, and they're in transition, well, this shit works, and they need some positive feedback. Not too many people will wait on your end or on the board's end, will wait, 10, 12 years before they get any money, because you started this process, most of you, because you needed money, or you wanted additional money, not to wait damn 10 years. But there are occasionally guys that are willing to wait,
So my chairman mentioned it says we are probably going to we are going to buy a company at the bottom of the market, pretty much coming up, we're going downward cycle right now. And instead of trying to time the market or sell it at higher end, because we are buying medical practices in Australia, we are better off just keeping it long term. That's what he thinks. And I said, no, I think we want to be thinking about exiting the day we start, as you mentioned. So, but he thinks like, oh, more long term, like 10, 15 years. He's about 60 years old, so he's happy to keep it for another 10 years, 15 years, whatever. So he says that. I mean, that's his opinion. But then I mentioned like, we want to exit in 3 to 5 years.
Or you can do a partial exit.
Yeah, partial. Okay.
And that's what Peter and Roberto, amongst others, they're doing partial exits. For example, I tease the guys, I want an €8 million house on the lake. Well, I mean, you're not going to be able to buy an €8 million house without some cash down.
Yeah.
Unless you get the seller to do seller finance, and we've had a couple of those. Surprised the hell out of me. I mean, why? But I mean, when the guy's got 6 houses, seller finance is fine. Guy's got 1 house,
Sure.
that he's not going to do that.
Yeah.
But we've had partial exits, and and it's worked out well. It's worked out well.
Did David buy the castle with the seller finance?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, Mr. Peña, we were talking about the capital gains. So if we valued an asset at $1 million, and let's say we were going to pay it over 50 months, just value it at 1.2 and pay it over, say, 72 months, it's still the same 60 months, it's still the same monthly repayment. Who gives a shit if you pay for an extra year? But from the seller's point of view, he's not getting crucified with tax. Is that the gist of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yep. But again, I've never worried about taxes, and it's probably because Bunker Hunt, my former partner, billionaires, Danny, if you're worried about taxes, you're not making enough fucking money. So
Yeah.
I've never worried about taxes. We pay them. And now that I've always paid UK taxes since I've lived here, but now I'm a UK citizen and a US citizen. And there used to be some benefit that, and it was on the time value of money, because the taxes are due in April 5th or whatever it is, and in America, it's due based on your fiscal year and or calendar year. But now there's no benefit whatsoever. So, but you make a lot of money. I mean, taxes become less important. Because in some cases, when you're just living hand to mouth, is that right?
Yeah.
Hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck. I mean, the fact that you got to pay taxes, or like VAT. Okay, our VAT payments are pretty goddamn big. Middle six figures, and I've never really understood the logic behind VAT. I understand what value-added tax, but a lot of people that pay VAT add no value. But they're still charged a VAT. So, now the two guys that have done a lot of deals, taxes we used to be at the forefront of the discussion, and now they're much less because they have money to pay it. You don't mind? Well, this is my opinion. You don't mind paying taxes when you have the money, but normally the taxes are due when you don't have the money.
When you spend
because. Yeah, absolutely. And so then you mind, then you bitch about government and run around embassies with your placards and shit like that, which is all a waste of time.
Regarding deal flow, the two guys who did quite a few deals in the group, both mentioned they sent out letters. Would you recommend, is that rather efficient?
No. Remember, during the regular seminar, okay, to refresh your memories, okay,
Call, emails, call.
Okay, call, email, call, but that can be call, letter, call.
Okay.
I said email or call or letter. And some people, if you had a business 30, 40 years, even 25 to 30 years, I mean, you're going to be in your mid-50s, early 60s, okay? And where they probably still send out Christmas cards instead of electronic Christmas cards, okay? And so that gets their attention. Some owners still read, they have their secretaries or assistants filter their mail, but they still read it, okay? And so, and it works. I mean, Andreas uses letters, Marcus uses letters, but then the very best, in my opinion, is what Leanne Carling does. She goes to mentioned yesterday, she goes to the goddamn factory, and when her husband used to do it, I make fun because Graham's not anywhere good looking as his wife. He didn't get through too many gatekeepers, but she gets through all the gatekeepers, you know? And, you know,
But I guess sending a letter after the call is a little plus.
yes,
Because what I'm seeing in the US is that a lot of your students have contacted the companies I'm approaching. So even the joint venture argument is a no-go.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's a bank in Connecticut, I might have mentioned it. I'm sure I mentioned it. That one poor bank manager got 22 QLA approaches in a week.
Wow.
And so he says, we're out of the QLA lending mode, you know. Now, to date, we have not had a big thing blow up on our face. In the 90s, we had a few blow up on our faces. But most of the guys that were in the 90s are now retired, dead, or whatever. So, but in recent 10, 15 years, we haven't had a QLA debacle. Debacle. And that's not to say we won't have one, but the kids are not necessarily more careful. Maybe the training's better. So, but the letter is a nice touch. Now, some kids on the bigger deals send Federal Express or registered, whatever it's called, and that gets to when it says personal, private, whatever you put on the envelopes, that gets to. Now, see, my stuff I get is filtered by at least 2 to 4 people for it to get to me. Okay, and they know what I want to see and what I don't want to see. But the letters do work. They absolutely. Now, some of the guys actually send a little gift. I was never a proponent of the gift, but some of the guys and gals send a little gift. And it comes across well. Now, to me, it comes across like a sales gimmick. You know, you're not going to buy me with a gift, but they still do it and it still works.